Let's cultivate our motivation. So now as we're planning for the Buddha Hall, the kindness of sentient beings is becoming quite apparent, or even more and more apparent, because the group of us here, there's no way by ourselves we can build that Buddha Hall. Yeah, we're not architects, we're not contractors or plumbers or electricians or acousticians or carpet layers or, all the different things that need to be done to build the Buddha Hall. So we're relying completely on the skills and the goodwill of other people who want to help us. And then even to pay for all of that, we're relying on the generosity and goodwill of people who believe in what we're doing and who want to support the mission of the Abbey. So it's kind of funny, we're sitting here in the middle of lots and lots of kindness, receiving the resources to build the hall, paying out the resources to the people who are doing the planning and construction. And then we're the ones who get to enjoy the hall. But of course, the hall actually will belong to all sentient beings. So every living being who wants to can have access to the Dharma. And we're constructing it so it will hopefully last for a few thousand years and many generations into the future. And so in this whole process of constructing the hall and who we're constructing it for, we're just these little pinpoints who are trying to facilitate this. So try and get a sense of yourself as a little pinpoint facilitating sentient beings, helping other sentient beings for the benefit of sentient beings by constructing the Buddha Hall. And when we think like that, we realize that it doesn't have very much to do with us. We're just facilitators. But as facilitators, we should definitely have a open-hearted intention, a compassionate intention, a bodhicitta motivation. And then go about what we're doing with joy. As little pinpoints who ourselves are quite insignificant in this whole process. And so similarly, in listening to teachings tonight, we're receiving the Dharma from generations of previous teachers so that we can practice it and transform our mind and share it with future generations of sentient beings. And so again, it's not about us. So I don't know about you, but I find it extremely helpful to think that it's not about me. Yeah. And that I'm just one little pinpoint in connecting all these different people who believe in the function of the Abbey, who want to help by donating, who do help by building, who help some more by attending courses and practicing the Dharma. And so as individuals, we're not a big deal in this. But what we're doing is important, and we can't, just because we're not personally a big deal, doesn't mean that we can slouch off. Yeah, you're getting what I'm saying? Yeah. Maybe you feel disappointed when you hear me say that we personally are not a big deal. I want a big deal. I want to be a big deal. I want to be the one known as the one who, was in charge of constructing the Buddha Hall at Sravasti Abbey. In 1,000 years, however long the hall lasts, that's great. Nobody's going to even know our name. Yeah? When we look at all these ancient things, do you know the names of the people who constructed these absolutely amazing Buddhist stupas, or paintings, or caves? We don't know who they are. And yet, look at, how grateful we feel to them for what they did. Because then, we can just go and see these artifacts and think of their faith and devotion and be inspired. So we're just, these little pinpoints making this happen. We're not big deals. So there's no sense in digging in our heels about anything in conjunction with this process. And that hasn't happened so far. Our committee, we're a gang of 4. Yeah, so our gang of 4. Don't confuse it with the other gang of 4. Okay, but we're quite harmonious, and we're working with really good people. Aren't we? Yeah. Today was amazing, just talking with the I can't even say what he does. Acoustician. I want to say acoustician. Aku. Like as in achu. Acoustician. Okay. Anyway, the guy who helps it so that you can hear when somebody's chanting or giving a talk. So, very nice. So you might think, okay, what's the relationship? Yeah, how many P's between, what can we do? Somebody who helps construct the Abbey and somebody who, we should be more specific rather than construct the Abbey, because that could, okay. But, somebody who's involved with the planning and physical construction of the Abbey, and somebody who benefits from the existence of the Buddha Hall. 4P. Okay, go through them.
Oh my gosh, the two subjects are so long, I can't even remember them. Someone who is involved in constructing and planning the Abbey, and someone who will benefit, the Buddha Hall, sorry, and someone who will benefit from the Buddha Hall is, for example, the Gang of Four. Someone who is involved in constructing the Abbey and will, actually, I'm wrong. It's 3P. It's 3P. Because there's nobody who's involved that won't benefit from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's 3P. Yeah, so someone who's involved in constructing the Abbey and who will also benefit from it is the plumber.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're mutually inclusive, actually.
Yeah, are they mutually inclusive or not?
Maybe. Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People in future generations.
People in future generations who will benefit but are not involved.
So,
that we know of, but their previous continuity may have been involved in making offerings for the Abbey, so it's hard to tell.
yeah. Okay, so 3P.
I had two new plumbers today, and one of them really enjoyed, they both are very polite, and they both, hopefully the repair was good. We'll find out that later, but just everything about it went so well, and one of them remarked how he really enjoyed coming up here. Just, it's beautiful and peaceful, and just coming in here and being greeted by people here, I don't know, it affects people.
Yeah.
Our acoustician advisor so far said he was wishing that his wife would not have left on Monday. She was out here with him as well. Because she could have enjoyed the physical beauty with him, and she would have met some of us.
Oh, wow. Well, maybe next time. Yeah. Okay, so I think we'll go back to talking about plumbers and not different from plumbers, and one with plumbers. And different from plumbers. Yeah. Makes it more interesting, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay. So, we were on location 7777. I don't know what page that is. It's 74% through the book. What page is it? 187. 387. Okay. Oh, that's good. At least we've done some pages in the last however long we've been studying this. But did you, the file from the book that Jeffrey sent us on Tuesday, did you look at that section he asked us to read? From the low rig book that he did? Look at it. It's a debate, and you will understand so much more of the debates this year than you did last year. Yeah? Remember when we were studying last year, or the year before, he had the incorrect things in red and the correct things in blue. And so this debate is colorful like this, but you'll understand how it's being debated, and you can follow it much better. Okay, so we're on the section that says when a person seems to be speaking of two phenomena as if they were three possibilities. So remember, with each of the four possibilities, 3P, 4P, MX, and MI, yeah, then when you're debating with somebody who is relating two things in that way, then there's four possibilities of how you may feel about the relationship. So you might agree with them. Yeah. So if it's somebody who says, who thinks they're 3P, you could agree with them and think they're also 3P. You could disagree and think they're 4P. You could disagree and think they're MX. You can disagree and think they're MI. Okay. So he's kind of giving us some tips, because a lot of the debate process depends upon the relationships between two different things, and especially if you're looking at the pervasion in the syllogism, it's, you're looking at how many P's are there between, such a weird expression. How many P's are there between these two things? Okay, so it's, it's very helpful to understand this. Okay, so as they're comparing two phenomena, they're speaking of 3P, and you agree. Okay, so here's what's going on if that's happening. If you agree that those two things seem to be three possibilities, make sure that you are on the same wavelength. Okay? It is usually clear enough whether the other person is thinking that every P is a Q or that every Q is a P, though you may need to clarify this first. For instance, because sometimes, it's not clear exactly what the other person's saying. Like, oh, duh, really? People aren't clear. So you might say, well, you seem to be saying that every P is a Q. Is that right? You seem to be saying that every apple is a Macintosh. Yeah. Is that correct? So you might say it like that. Okay. If the person disagrees with that, then the discussion may go in any of many directions. So consult the appropriate section for these strategies, because if the person doesn't agree that they're thinking that every apple is a Macintosh, then, or every Macintosh, every apple is a Macintosh, then, then you have to find out exactly what they're saying, because maybe they're thinking apples and Macintosh relate in 4P, or maybe they're MX, or maybe they're MI. So you have to figure out what exact position the other person's taking. More typically, you have to understand correctly what the person was saying, and he or she will confirm it. The next step is to check to see if the person thinks that the pervasion between P and Q runs both ways. Okay? So this will tell you whether the person thinks that it's 3P or 4P. Okay? So then you ask, well, then do you think that every Macintosh is an apple as well? Okay. If the person agrees with this too, then he or she has the idea that P and Q are actually mutually exclusive. Inclusive. Okay. Since you believe, but see, what that person's believing is wrong, isn't it? Since you believe that there are three possibilities, but you don't actually, I should give another example that works, actually. Let's try another one. Give me an example. Okay. Products and impermanent phenomena. Okay. So you say to the person first, oh, it seems like you think all products are impermanent phenomena. Is that correct? And they say yes. And then you say, do you think all impermanent phenomena are products? And they say yes. So then actually they're thinking that product and impermanent phenomena are mutually inclusive. So they're not thinking that it's 3P. So this is just the very beginning of the debate, where you're just trying to figure out what the person is saying. Okay? Okay, so if the person agrees with that too, then he or she has the idea that P and Q are actually mutually inclusive. Since you believe that they are three possibilities, refer to the strategy below for the case when someone seems to be saying that two things are MI, but you think they are 3P. Okay, so later on we'll come to it, what to do when the person says they're MI and you think they're 3P. Okay, so one thing that, well, we'll get to it, but one thing is you may give an example of something that if they think incorrectly that those two things are MI and you think they're 3P, then you can give an example of something that's a Q but not a P. Yeah, and if they don't accept that, then you would give a definition of a Q and a definition of a P and show that person that every Q is not a P. Okay, so that's the strategy, one strategy that you could take in the debate. Okay. If you think that both P and Q compare as 3P, then you can, and the person believes that too, you can confirm that belief by the following paradigm for establishing 3P. So the other person thinks 3P, you think it's 3P. You need to establish that. So you're really working together with the other person to explore, are these two things really 3P or not? Okay, so somebody says there are three possibilities between P and Q. Yeah. So give me an example. Okay, humans and mammals. So there's 3P between them. Okay, so the answer in the debate, there's three possibilities between humans and animals. Okay, so one, something that, and mammals. Sometimes animals. Okay, mammals. So something that is both a human and a mammal is the subject, you. Okay. Yeah. So the subject, you, or the subject, Venerable Tarpa, is a human being because of being, and you have to give a reason. Yeah, because you're being a Homo sapien. Okay, and the subject, Venerable Tarpa, is a mammal because of being a... No! No pervasion. Okay, so Venerable Tarpa is a mammal because of being a
warm-blooded vertebrate animal of a class that is distinguished by the possession of hair or fur, the secretion of milk by females for the nourishment of the young, and typically the birth of live young. Or you could say because she meets the definition of a mammal.
Yeah. No, you have to give the definition. Yeah. Okay, so whatever is a human, yeah, now we do the next step. Whatever is a human is necessarily a mammal, but whatever is a mammal is not necessarily human. For example, the subject, mudita. Okay, so the subject, mudita, is a mammal because of being warm-blooded vertebrae with the females producing milk. And what do they do with their young?
Live young.
Oh, and produce live young. Okay. Well, she hasn't done some of those, but anyway, she's still a mammal. Okay, the subject mudita is not a human because of because she's not a Homo sapien. Okay. Then 3, something that is neither a human being or a mammal is the subject. Oh, that's true. Okay, so a turkey. Where are the turkeys this year, by the way?
No, I have seen 10 going under down in the feeding station.
The feeding station. Really? That's where they all are? Okay, because usually we're swarmed by turkeys right now. Okay, so the subject turkey is the subject turkey is not a human because of being a bird. The subject turkey is not a mammal because of not.
It's not a milk producer.
Yeah, they have eggs. Okay. So remember that the paradigm is only a skeleton and can be filled out with the flesh of the debate. So we just did that. The implied complete form of debate for this answer is provided in chapter 25, bringing it all together, debating a comparison of phenomena. And so there we'll go into all the different things that you do in a debate to prove things that are different ways. Okay, so then if the other person's saying that they're 3P, so that was, the other person says they're 3P and you agree. Now here they're saying they're 3P, but you think they're actually 4P. It frequently occurs that people seem to be speaking of 2 things, as if there were 3 possibilities, but there are actually 4. The problem here is that they are thinking that either every P is a Q or that every Q is a P, but in fact, in both directions. They are thinking that either every P is a Q or that every Q is a P. But in fact, in both the directions, the truth is that some are and some aren't. Okay, so a visual representation is helpful here. Okay, so the one on the left, this person seems to believe that every P is a Q. What's an example of something that is 4P that somebody could think is 3P? Okay, wrong consciousnesses and mental consciousnesses. Okay, so here, let's say the P is wrong consciousness and the Q is mental consciousness. So the person seems to be thinking that every wrong consciousness is a mental consciousness. That's the diagram on the left. Okay? But what the person doesn't realize is that there is at least one wrong consciousness that is not a mental consciousness. And so that's why the 1 is in the P category, but not in the overlapping category because it's not a Q. Okay? So the 1, remember, means that there's something that has been excluded that you need to put in, and the question mark is something that they've put in that doesn't exist, okay? So what you need to do is show the person that there's something that is a wrong consciousness that is, or get them to see that is a wrong consciousness that isn't a mental consciousness. Okay? So first, try to tack down exactly which way the person seems to think the pervasion is running. So again, are they thinking that all wrong consciousnesses are mental consciousnesses, or are they thinking that all mental consciousnesses are wrong consciousnesses? Yeah, so you have to figure that out. Again, this is usually clear from earlier statements. In fact, usually it was the earlier faulty idea of a pervasion between 2 things that tipped you off that there was a problem. Okay, so you were debating before and the person said something that was off the wall. Still, sometimes it may be helpful to get it straight, even if this just means pointing out the implied or clearly stated perversion to the person. So you might say, "Excuse me, do I understand you correctly? Are you saying that every wrong consciousness is a mental consciousness?" Okay, so you ask the person directly. Usually you have understood correctly, and your opponent will confirm that that is what he or she is saying. So then, because you understand that these two things are actually 4P, you may politely point out that some are and some aren't. Okay, so you would say, well, no, actually, there are wrong consciousnesses that are not mental consciousnesses. For example, there are wrong consciousnesses such as
Visual consciousness apprehending a scarecrow as a person in a field.
Okay, so a visual, we could also debate, is the visual consciousness apprehending the scarecrow as a person, but for right now, we'll say it's a visual consciousness, but I have my doubts. Huh? Okay, how about a visual consciousness seeing two moons? Okay, that one's easier. Okay. So, for instance, there are wrong consciousnesses, such as a visual consciousness seeing two moons. These are wrong consciousnesses, but they are not mental consciousnesses. Of course, another tact is to fling a consequence at the person's view, saying, then it would follow that the subject, what were we saying? The visual consciousness, seeing two moons, is a mental consciousness because of being a wrong consciousness. Okay? So the first way is what you would probably say in regular conversation if you were talking nicely and you didn't want to offend somebody. Yeah? Flinging the consequence is what you would do in a debate where you're just confronting the person with their wrong idea. So then it would follow that the subject of visual consciousness, seeing two moons, is a mental consciousness because of being a wrong consciousness. However, it often happens that for most people, a consequence is not very effective here. It just depends. Gentle prodding might be better. Okay? So it depends on your situation. If it's a social situation, you don't want to, it would be terribly embarrassing to the other person to fling a consequence and they have to admit that they're wrong. Okay? In a debate, that's completely okay. Yeah. To tie this to an example, suppose someone thinks that a consciousness that is mistaken with regard to its appearing object, P, must be a mental consciousness, Q. Okay? It is asserted in this system that every conceptual consciousness is mistaken with regard to its appearing object. But such mistaken consciousnesses may also be non-conceptual ones, such as a visual perception of white snow as blue. But maybe it is blue. Remember, we talked with the scientist? Okay, so maybe the visual perception of two moons. Okay. Or misperceiving the odor of fresh-cut grass as the odor of watermelon. Who does that? Huh? In the Midwest? Yeah. These are consciousnesses mistaken with regard to their appearing objects, so they're P's, that are not mental consciousnesses or Q's. So this factor of being mistaken with regard to what is appearing happens with both mental and sense consciousnesses. But you know, not everything that appears to a consciousness is an appearing object. But that's later. So what he said here isn't completely kosher. There can be things that appear to a consciousness that are not their appearing object.
If he's saying that all is certain in this system that every conceptual consciousness is mistaken with regard to its appearing object.
Yeah. What's the appearing object of a conceptual consciousness?
A conceptual appearance.
Yeah.
So then it would be 3P in the opposite direction, because there would be nothing that is a mental consciousness that's not mistaken. He's comparing a consciousness that is mistaken with regard to its appearing object and a mental consciousness. Oh, okay, so we can have a mental consciousness that's not a conceptual consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay, so it wouldn't be 3P.
Yeah. Okay. So other possible examples for this point. So legal and moral. This is a very interesting one. So we won't read what he said. Let's just do that ourselves. Okay, what's something that is both legal and moral? Or, yeah. Well, or maybe we should say illegal and immoral. That's easier. Okay. What's something that is both illegal and immoral? Stealing, murdering. Stealing something of value such that the government would get involved, not just taking a pencil, okay, and killing a human being. So we have to be specific in examples. But you're talking about, see, we have to be very specific. This is showing us, murder by one citizen of another citizen that is pre-planned when that person is not in any danger themselves. So you have to, yeah. No, yeah, but if the person isn't in any danger themselves, or if the person is in danger themselves, then it could be manslaughter instead of murder. Yeah. Huh? Yeah, so we have to be more specific, okay?
Murder has to be premeditated from a human being.
Right, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking as opposed to accidentally hitting somebody.
Right. Right. Yeah. What?
People online won't be hearing any of this if we don't use the microphone.
Yeah. Okay, so let's think of an example. So it's showing us we have to be quite specific of something that is illegal and immoral.
Stealing our neighbor's car.
Okay, so stealing your neighbor's car. It's illegal and it's immoral. Okay. Then, what is something that is illegal but not immoral?
Going on our neighbor's property that's clearly marked no trespassing to search for our missing guests.
So that is illegal, do you think?
Trespassing signs are posted.
Yeah.
We've gone on the property without checking with the neighbors first because they're looking for our guests. So it's a moral action. We're looking for them. But we're trespassing.
Uh-huh. Okay. What's something that is not immoral, but not illegal?
In some states.
Hmm?
Capital punishment in some states.
Okay, something that is immoral but not illegal.
Yeah,
Yeah, could be capital punishment in some states. And what is, well, our state, yeah. And then what are both illegal and immoral? No, that is neither illegal nor immoral.
Buying sheep headed for a slaughterhouse and taking them to a farm sanctuary.
So that's
Legal and moral.
okay. That's taking our own sheep.
Buying sheep.
Sheep. Oh,
headed to
buying
market
sheep.
for
Okay,
a
I didn't hear that
slaughterhouse.
part. Okay. Okay, buying sheep and taking them to a sheep sanctuary. Okay, good. Okay, so then the second one, yeah. So this is good to think about, isn't it? You know, and especially when you're in a position of teaching about karma and people will ask you about these things, and then you have to think, which category do they fit in? Okay. If somebody says, "Oh, I had a fling with, my old boyfriend or girlfriend, and I'm married now," then which category would you put it in? It's not illegal, but it is immoral. Okay. But then you have people who, what's very interesting is, some people have to resign from Congress because of that. And the president has done it multiple times and doesn't have to resign at all. Yeah. Yeah, he's special. Yeah. Well, we already know that. Okay. Okay, so politicians and either Democrats or Republicans. So somebody who's a politician and either a Democrat or a Republican. Mitt Romney. Okay. Somebody who's a politician and not a Democrat or a Republican. Is he an independent? No, no, he's with the Dems. He's going to the Democratic debates. Okay. No, he's a Republican. No, there's one guy in Congress, I can't remember his name, who was a Republican and just became an independent. Yeah, so that guy. Yeah, or Kabash, or yeah. Do you remember?
Yeah, I would say Putin. Because the politicians.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
he's
a politician and he's not
neither
a Democrat
or
a
Republican.
Yeah, so Putin. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, then somebody who's a Democrat or a Republican, but not a politician. Okay, and somebody who's neither a politician nor a Democrat or a Republican. Corona, okay. No, I think Corona votes like us. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, functioning things and different from functioning things. So what is both a functioning thing and different from functioning thing? Okay. Why is a clock a functioning thing?
Perform a function.
Okay, and why isn't it and why is it different from functioning thing?
Because it's not functioning thing, the category.
It's not.
It's not functioning thing, the category.
Yeah, no, because the only thing that is, because it is something that's different from functioning
Right.
thing. Yeah, okay. But you're not necessarily talking about different from functioning thing as a category there. It's just when you say, what kind of things are different from functioning thing, it's everything that is not the functioning thing, the same in name and meaning.
Which would be the category, I think.
Yeah, but it's the category of functioning thing, not the category of different from functioning thing. Anyway, we mean the same thing. Okay, what is something that is different from functioning thing and not a functioning thing? You have to say something louder.
There is something, the subject
Okay.
There is something, the subject, selflessness, sorry, wrong system.
Okay, why is selflessness not a functioning thing?
Oh, the definition of that is
It doesn't
because it's a
perform a
permanent
function.
phenomenon because it can't perform a function, yes.
Okay, and why is it different from functioning thing?
Because it's not functioning thing.
Okay, and what is something that is neither a functioning thing nor different from functioning thing? The isolate of different from functioning. Yeah, okay. No, that's different from functioning thing because it's not the same in name and meaning as functioning thing.
How about just functioning thing? It's not
But it's not
different than-
different from functioning thing. Yeah,
No, it's not a functioning thing, and it's not different than functioning thing. Because
'Cause it
here's
is
where we're talking
functioning
about the
thing.
category.
well, wait a minute, let's do both of them because, okay. So if we say functioning thing, okay, is functioning thing a functioning thing? Yes. Is functioning thing different from functioning thing? No, it is functioning thing. So that example doesn't work.
Said something that's not different than functioning thing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. It's something. Something.
But is functioning
that's not-
thing as if it's a category, is it a functioning thing? Then it's a
Yes.
mental, it's a conceptual appearance.
No.
No?
Functioning thing is a functioning thing. Okay.
Then there's nothing.
Yeah. So. No, functioning thing is a functioning thing. Right. That's why that example doesn't work.
That's why I'm saying isolate a
Okay.
functioning thing.
Okay. So is isolate a functioning thing? No.
So it's not a functioning thing, so it's.
Yeah,
works
it's
for the
not a
first half.
functioning thing. Is isolate a functioning thing different from functioning thing?
That's the question.
It is. Because
No,
anything it has to be something that's not different from functioning thing, which would mean it's the same as functioning thing, but isolate a functioning thing is different.
Because it's not the same in name and meaning.
Right.
Because the name is different, but the meaning isn't different.
No, isolate a functioning thing is not the same in name as functioning thing.
Right, it's not the same in the name, but the meaning,
The meaning,
not different from functioning thing.
Not functioning.
Is the only thing not different from functioning thing
Yeah.
is functioning thing.
Thing. No, the isolate of functioning thing is permanent. Whatever is the isolate of functioning thing is a functioning thing, is functioning thing itself.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So would that mean there's nothing?
Let's see what he says.
Okay.
A person might easily imagine that everything that is different from functioning thing is not a functioning thing. But the phrase different from functioning thing does not mean non-functioning thing. Rather, it refers to any existent that is not exactly the same in both name and meaning as functioning thing. Okay, so isolate a functioning thing is not the same in name as meaning as functioning things. So it is different from functioning thing, but it is not different from functioning thing. For instance, a chair is a functioning thing, but is nonetheless different from a functioning thing. Yeah. Okay, so then we're still with somebody who says that things are 3P, but they're actually mutually exclusive. So you want to put that diagram on? Okay, so the person thinks, again, that everything that's a P is a Q, but, yeah, what this person doesn't realize is that there's no P that is also a Q. So that's why it has the question mark in the circle that is both a P and a Q, because they're saying that something is that, but there isn't something that. Okay, so to differentiate between the one in a circle and the question mark in a circle. Okay, so what this person doesn't realize is that there's no P that is also a Q. Okay, so they think every P is a Q. Yeah, but when a person seems to be speaking of two things as if they were 3P, but they are actually mutually exclusive, the problem is that they are thinking that there is at least one thing that is both a P and a Q, but there isn't. Okay, what could be an example? Being moral and killing. Okay, so which one's P and which one's Q? Okay, but you're saying that they're, yeah. Killing is Q and moral is, I think you mean killing is P and moral is Q. Okay. Okay, so the problem is that they think that there's at least one thing that is both a P and a Q, but there is not. Okay, so what could somebody be thinking there if they're thinking that there's at least one thing that is killing and is also moral?
Going to war.
Yeah, killing al-Baghdadi. Okay.
Insects invading your home.
Yeah, or insects, yeah, in your home. Okay, so this imagined thing is represented by a question mark inside of an imagined sphere of existence, which is inside the P circle, which in turn is wholly included inside the Q circle. For instance, someone might say, well, we know each other by our appearance. We are defined and identified by our appearance. So every individual is nothing more than his or her body. Yeah? There's lots of people that say that. Okay. Persons are material things. Lots of people believe that. So this is a popular physicalist position, that the person is merely a physical thing made up of atoms. From the point of view of the collected topics, logicians, and all Buddhists in general, the person, whether human, animal, Buddha, or whoever, is not physical, not material, an impermanent phenomena designated to independence on mind and body, but not a material thing. There is little to do here but to give an opposing explanation to the person who speaks of a human as a material thing, perhaps drawing out some unsavory implications of that position. What would be an unsavory implication of that position, of saying human beings are material things. What? Pile of poo. Vegetable poo, yeah. Goo. Okay. Yeah. So that could be one thing, that a human being is nothing more than, yeah, a pile of vegetable goo. I could see another thing, disadvantage, would be if human beings were only material things. Then if you thought that somebody had a gene that made them a sociopath, then somebody could warrant killing that person because they were a sociopath, because they had a gene that was correlated with being a sociopath. If you say a person's just a material thing, then that gene could make them that. Yeah?
Slavery was built on that idea that they're not humans.
Yep.
They're just
Yeah.
possessions.
Yeah. Yeah, they're material possessions. Yeah. Okay. So if you meet people like this, which you probably will, if you haven't already, then, debating them, I wouldn't start off with a debate, because they don't know the debating structure and everything, but I would agree with him, start off just giving a general explanation how we see things as Buddhists, and then maybe give some things that could help the person see that it could be possible that a person is more than a material thing, Yeah. Okay, so maybe some of the stories of rebirth that we've heard, that the scientists have found, you could talk about that. You could talk about, how Tukdam, the Tibetans not Tibetans, but highly realized people remaining in meditation after their body dies. Yeah. People who recognize their previous rebirth, or objects that belong to their previous rebirth. You can bring all those kinds of examples. Okay. There's little to do here, but give an opposing explanation to the person who speaks of a human as a material thing, perhaps drawing out some unsavory implications of the position, if you can. For instance, one of the debates in the first chapter of Collected Topics Literature makes it clear that a white horse is not white because the horse is not physical and not visible. I would not give that example to a scientist. The color of a horse may be white, but the horse is the non-physical person, merely designated to the mind and body of a horse.
Oh, before you jump in, I wanted to say, I think that one example you often give, which is great, is asking people if they fall in love with a brain.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
really?
Would you fall in
Come
love
on.
with somebody's brain?
Or would you ask your wife to measure your, whatever it is?
Yeah, your
response to
galvanic
prove-
spin response and the neurons in a certain section of your brain to see if what you were saying is true. That would be a really good, what do they say, lie detector test. Yeah. For instance, one of the debate, okay, we did that. Another compelling example for this point. Knowledge, okay, here's a good one. Knowledge and correct superstition. Correct suspicion. So don't read what he says, okay, because I know you don't read ahead anyway, so I'm joking. Some people, what is the pervasion between people who come to the class and people who read ahead? Who's an example of who does both? Every time, every time. Who reads ahead every time? Venerable Tarpa. Okay, who comes to the class and doesn't read ahead? Okay, Venerable Nima. Who reads ahead and doesn't come to class? Okay. What's, yeah. Okay, maybe somebody online. Who is neither coming to class nor reading ahead?
The guests
Yeah, okay, our guests. Okay, so knowledge and correct suspicion. Okay, so don't read. What's something that's both knowledge, okay, and correct suspicion? Or we could say correct assumption instead. That's easier. Let's say correct. Or, huh? So, wait a minute, knowledge, okay. No, actually, we have to use correct suspicion here. Yeah, okay, so something that is both not. I don't know if his examples are correct here. Look at what he's saying. Herein lie many stories, treasures of drama. We have all heard people claim, prior to knowing something, such as the infidelity of a partner, I just knew such and such, okay? I don't have proof yet, but I know that that's what's going on, okay? But, so he's using that as an example of knowledge and correct suspicion. Oh, yeah, they're mutually exclusive, right? Okay. And we have all heard the claims after the facts that in that I just knew it. From the point of view of the epistemology of the collective topics, these are wrong claims. Suspicion is not knowledge, even when it turns out that it was correct. Yeah, okay, that's where. That's what Trump does, or that's what we do with him? That we have correct?
We have a lot of suspicions that are probably correct, but we don't have the knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but according to this, kind of having a correct hunch and having knowledge, you can't have the two at the same time. Yeah. So you can't compare two things that don't exist at the same time. That wouldn't work. Okay. So then something, your partner thinks that they're 3P, but they are actually MI, mutually inclusive. So you want to show the example, the diagram? Okay. So there, okay, the person seems to believe that there could be something that is a Q that is not a P, okay, because that person is thinking that things are 3P, okay, or they could be thinking that there's something that is a P and not a Q. Okay, so they're thinking it's 3P. Okay, but so they're imagining something. That's why it's a question mark. Okay, but though this person may understand correctly that every P is a Q, what this person does not understand is that it is also true that every Q is a P. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah? Yeah, the left diagram could also be the question mark inside something that's both oh no, then it wouldn't be actually, Yeah. No, but here it's somebody thinks it's 3P. So you could have the question mark inside the circle. That's both of them. Couldn't you? Because that would make it 3P. No, if you had the question mark, or if you thought that there was something that was a P but not a Q,
It would be the other way, then you have to have the circle first.
Mhm.
You just have to change the letters.
no, but if the example is when something is 3P, the diagram is like that, except you don't have a question mark within where it is. You have a 1 inside the circle that is both of them. Yeah. So, okay, anyway. Okay, so though this person may understand correctly that every P is a Q, what this person doesn't understand is it's also true that every Q is a P. Yeah. In other words, that there's one circle that includes both P's and Q's. Okay. The first strategy here, if you're in a debate, is to ask the person to give an example of something that is one but not the other. Yeah? So they should give an example of something that is a Q but not a P. Okay. Or something that is a P but not a Q. No, if things are 3P, how do you draw the circles? Just like that. The circles would be the right thing,
yeah,
but the question mark wouldn't be where it is.
If the person drew their circles like that and thought that P was a subset of Q,
Yeah.
then they already don't think there's anything that is a P that isn't a Q. If they thought there was a P that wasn't a Q, they wouldn't be saying it was 3P.
Yeah, but if you think that P's are subsets of Q's, isn't that thinking that there's 3P?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're suggesting that they come up with something that's a P but not a Q. And that's impossible for someone who thinks it's 3P. That would have to be 4 possibilities. Or, yeah.
Yeah. If you take the question mark where it is, out of where it is, and you put it in the circle that is the small circle that's P within the big circle of Q's, okay. So if somebody thinks like that,
That's correct for 3P.
that's correct for 3P. Oh, but they're actually MI. Okay, I'm confused again. Yeah. Okay.
We're good.
Yeah. Okay. So give an example of something that is one but not the other. That's the first strategy. Okay. Or speak more clearly to guide the discussion. For instance, if it sounds like the person is suggesting that there are 3 possibilities between impermanent phenomena, P, and products, Q, such that every impermanent phenomena is a product, but it is not the case that every product is an impermanent phenomena, then you would say to them, well, I agree that every impermanent phenomena is a product, but I also think that every product is an impermanent phenomena. So can you give me an example of a product that is not an impermanent phenomena?
To Deer Park that one year, we had the longest difficulty with trying to convince someone that an electron wasn't permanent. And I never could convince her, a nun, the whole time I was there.
Huh.
The whole time. So she would fit right into this. She would say, yeah, it's a product, but it's permanent.
She would say it's a product.
Yeah. From the way she talked about things, was able to function, was able to create things, produce from causes and conditions,
Yes.
and is permanent.
Is permanent. Yeah.
We talked about that, and it was non-momentary. The phenomenon was non-momentary. Yeah, we finally gave up.
Yeah, but there's many people, throughout history, scientists have been looking for the smallest permanent particle out of which everything is created. So people have been looking for a small permanent particle, and she found one, she thinks. Yeah.
I guess people would think the soul, too,
Yeah.
created by God, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's permanent. They could give that example. Well, would they say the soul? No. They wouldn't say the soul is impermanent. So they would say the soul is permanent, but it is a product. Yeah, it's created by God. Okay. Of course, people who hold such a position to be true won't be able to come up with a counterexample to what you know to be true, though they may try. If they try, you have to shoot their examples down one by one, politely, unless you're a debater. You can affirm that they are products by pointing out the causes and conditions that give rise to such impermanent phenomena, and then you can show that every product has course impermanence. If even great galaxies arise, abide, and dissolve, what could there be that arises from causes and does not dissolve away? A permanent electron. Yeah, a permanent moves around. Yes, yeah. Ultimately, when they cannot give a successful example, then that would seem to give support to your position that the two things are actually mutually inclusive. Other possibilities for this point: objects of knowledge and existence. So what are they? Mutually exclusive. So what's inclusive? So what's something that's both? Okay, the chair. What's something that is an object of knowledge and not an existent? There's nothing. But somebody could think there is. What's something that is existent but not an object of knowledge? A knowable object. The invisible man isn't in existence, sorry. A speck of dust on Pluto isn't existent, but not a knowable object. Yeah, it doesn't mean it has to be a knowledge object. It's actually better to say knowable object. Yeah, to be a knowable object, you don't have to be perceiving it. It just means somebody. Yeah. What is something that is not an object of knowledge and not an existent? Yeah, rabbit's horn, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, a president who makes sense. No, sometimes he does, yeah. Okay. Awarenesses and knowers. This one's interesting. Okay. So, yeah. What's the relationship between oh my goodness, this is just. Sorry. My thing skips around sometimes. What's the relationship between awarenesses and knowers? What? Mutual, okay, what's something, but could somebody think That they're different? Yeah, how could somebody think they're different? What would be an example of something that somebody would think that um, is one but not the other?
So if something appears to a consciousness but is not ascertained, that would be an awareness but not a knower because it didn't know it.
Yeah, so somebody could easily think that. Yeah, if it's not ascertained, it's not a knower. Okay, but, a moon, it sounds very strange, but the person seeing a double moon, that consciousness is a knower. Because knower and awareness are synonymous. And so there, it sounds very strange. The translation term knower, sounds very strange if it could also include something that is an erroneous consciousness. Okay. Sorry, I'm still trying to look at, beyond that. Okay. Okay, so the first strategy, we did that. Okay. So here he says, these two are, in the collectivoptic system, these two are taken as mutually inclusive. It is hard to imagine that there could be a knower that is not an awareness, but one might imagine an awareness that is not a knower, like an undirected consciousness or a consciousness to which an object appears but is not ascertained. For example, when you pass someone on the street, but you failed to notice the person. So, okay. Questions? Took us a long time to get through that section.
I found in a section on one and different where he talks about something that is neither a functioning thing nor different from functioning thing is the horn of a rabbit. So an existent, non-existent would fill that. Because if it's all non-existents are different from any existent.
No, I don't think so. I mean, to be different from functioning thing, don't you need to be an existent? Look at the definition from different from. I think there, a non-functioning thing can include non-existence, but I think different from functioning thing must be an existent.
Yeah, it does. It says a phenomena that is not exactly the same in name and meaning.
Okay, so it does have to be existent.
So, but he says here something that is neither a functioning thing nor different from, it's not that he's not saying it's different from functioning thing. He's saying it's not different. It doesn't qualify as different from functioning thing because it's not a phenomena.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of negatives in there.
The book, it says that different from functioning thing includes every existent other than functioning thing itself.
Yeah.
So it has to be existent.
Yeah, so it has to be an existent. To be different from, but to be non-functioning thing, it can be a rabbit's horn. Okay, shall we go on, or are you all mentally exhausted? I'm getting the feeling that the relationship between people who want to continue and people in this room is mutually exclusive.
Yes, exactly.
Let's talk about something at the end tonight.
Okay.
Give more examples.
Okay. So give something. Well, one thing, that, how we're talking about how so much of this involves putting things in categories and figuring out what is what and what is the definition of what. And so now one big thing that's going on in debate in the country is what is the meaning of executive privilege? Okay. And so, it hasn't been, there's been a general definition, but it's not totally pinned down, And what's the definition of presidential immunity? Okay. So again, it's like how we talk of things and we think everybody's talking about the same thing. But then when we start talking, we realize, no, people have very different definitions of these words. And because they have different definitions of these terms, then there's a whole lot of quarreling going on. Because you can give an example of the president, or somebody saying that the president can not even be investigated for a crime. One guy is even saying even former presidents have executive immunity. That would mean that you could be a president and never, have to answer for any of your actions. Yeah. Because he's kind of, he's making the definition of presidential immunity or executive privilege very huge. Yeah. Well, and actually, what's the relationship between presidential immunity and executive privilege? What about, because he's also saying that or some people are saying that the chief aides, the very important aides, also have immunity. Yeah, or that they also can fall under executive privilege. Yeah. And one person said, well, yeah, if that's true, that the president can never, be held responsible for anything because he has executive immunity. Yeah. And this one lawyer said, then we have a king. Yeah. Then we have a dictator, actually.
What's the point of having impeachment trials then?
Well, that's what the Republicans are saying. Well, they've been, a lot of people are saying, you can't impeach him because he has executive immunity, and these people don't have to go testify in front of Congress because of executive privilege. And he says they don't have to go. So there's a lot of people that Congress wants to call to testify, and the White House, and Trump in particular, is saying, no, you don't have to go. You don't even have to answer a congressional subpoena. Yeah? Yeah, well, yeah, then we have a dictator or a king. Yeah, because essentially what he's saying is that, Congress doesn't have the ability to oversee the president because the president can just claim executive immunity or privilege.
They're not smart.
Yeah, other people, they did their best in the other impeachments to not give information to the Congress. Nixon cut out, 18 and a half minutes of one tape or something like that. And, and initially he refused to give his tapes over. So, yeah, that's been tried before, but then they eventually gave in and gave the things, but it was never decided by a court. And Trump is not giving in.
Trying to unravel my head about this knowledge and correct suspicion and whether they are mutually exclusive.
Okay.
So, and I'm trying to think of examples, and I thought of one, and I wanted to present it. So, here is a man who believes in the power of shamanism. He happens to be a scientist. He goes down to the Brazilian forest, meets with a shaman, and the shaman shows the results of using a medicinal herb to cure disease. As a believer, the man has knowledge that the medicinal plan works. As the scientist, he has a correct suspicion because he still has to prove it.
But even the person who's the believer doesn't have knowledge that it works.
And what is the definition of knowledge?
Well, yeah, we would have, well, this is, yeah, then we have to say, I would think knowledge involves ascertaining the object.
So,
Yeah. So you may have many examples of people who have been cured by a certain herb or whatever. Yeah. But the question comes, is that definite knowledge? And even when science investigates something and does a test, they never get 100% efficacy for any medicine. Yeah, there's evidence, but not proof. Yeah.
You're dividing this person in half. So if this person has had the experience of the herb and has been healed personally, they have definite knowledge. That they have a responsibility as a scientist to prove it doesn't mean that their knowledge is not is invalid.
But they could have been healed by something else, not that herb. When you get healed, you're not always sure exactly what it is that is healing you.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
But they still have a knowledge that.
They have, well, she
Well,
said
that's
they
true.
may have evidence, but not knowledge.
Yeah, but I'm quibbling with dividing this person's experience into two different halves. That as a believer, I'm experiencing this, but as a scientist, I have to do it a different way. It's like your mind either knows or it doesn't know, regardless of what you have to prove to the rest of the world.
No, because I think if you've had an experience, then you have a theory. And what a scientist does is try and check if that theory is correct. So you may really believe in a theory, but you have to investigate if it's correct. It's the whole thing about about what scientists do. They come up with a theory of something first.
Is only a scientist the only person that can have knowledge?
I'm not saying scientists have knowledge. I think knowledge is actually quite difficult to gain. Total ascertainment of something, I think, is extremely difficult. And that, in terms of science, like she said, there's evidence that this and this, but to say it's 100% that if you do this, you necessarily get that.
It seems like once you have enough knowledge, once you know enough about it to say it is knowledge, then it's no longer suspicion. And if it's still a suspicion, then you can't really say you know it. It just...
Yeah, well, I don't think that knowledge and suspicion can happen at the same time, so I don't think you can compare them at all.
Well, I think if you look at them, you can only have one about the same thing. I mean, I
but it
could
doesn't-
suspect somebody's outside or I could know somebody's outside, but I
Yeah.
can't
Right.
have both.
But you might in your mind know somebody's outside, but there's nobody outside.
that's me thinking a suspicion is knowledge.
Yeah.
But it's still suspicion.
It's still a suspicion, but many people think their suspicions are knowledge. Yeah. Yeah, don't we? I mean, very often we think our suspicions are knowledge. Just like your BBC, we think our projections are knowledge.
Seems like you can compare a cause and its effect. They're just mutually exclusive. But you can compare them. They don't have to exist at the same time.
Yeah, but knowledge and suspicion cannot exist in the same person at the same time. That's
the
what
same
I'm
thing.
saying. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting, when we try and apply some of these things to our experience and really see, when do we know something incontrovertibly? Yeah, not so often.